I'm holding court this morning with Jakoyo Midiwo, who's the former member of Parliament of Gem, and also the minority leader at the National Assembly, or the 11th National Assembly. Also, Dr. Eseli Simiyu, who is the member of Parliament from Tongaren and the General Secretary of Ford Kenya, and Kimani Wamatangi, the senator from Kiambu. Otene Molo is away in Senegal, and so they are the panelists as well, but we continue the conversation nonetheless. Let's just begin from what is happening, especially with the sugar industry, because I know also, Jakoyo Midiwo, you have a wealth of knowledge on this. You've been following what is happening with the sugar industry so far. And yes, right now, as I just read from my intro, that this particular industry, it is right now on its knees, dying. And Kenyans right now, they're taking, toxic substances, unbeknownst that, yes, we have trusted institutions that we have given them that particular right to make sure that Kenyans, they don't take in, heavy metals and substances in the food, in the drinks, in some of the products they use, maybe in the bathrooms as well. But still, this is happening so far. Let's just take a wider perspective of this industry and just talk, man to man, or man to man. Of course, this is generic when I use the word man, but I just want us to be very candid this morning as far as the sugar industry is concerned, and Kenya. Where are we headed, and don't we really care about the public health of Kenyans?
When you walk into a supermarket, yes, and see sugar from Dubai, you must smell there's trouble. Which desert grows sugar? That you begin with that. I can tell you, we said here sometimes on this forum that the crooks wanted to kill the sugar industry. Remember, about 2 years ago, Professor Anyang' Nyong'o and I went to court to stop the attempted privatization of the sugar factories before asset transfers to the counties. It is interesting, the governors also went to court, but in the ruling of the court, you could see the sweet sugar in the court, because the court never even made reference to our court case, but we lost the case. This sugar thing, it has too much money. You saw when Kidero was at Mumias, it was called a blue chip company. Now would a blue chip company collapse immediately after the MD leaves? It means it was there was falsehood involved. And you saw they are chasing each other with guns all over, so that they sort themselves out in that corruption. I can tell you for free that whoever are importing sugar in this country, they are not more than 3-4 people. And whatever they're doing is murder. They're murdering Kenyans. And whoever is caught should be at least charged with attempted murder. They are known. There's KEBS involved, there's KRA involved. Everybody there in that chain is not a mysterious person.
Right. So, but why don't we know the names of these people? You legislators, you know the names, but you are very gun-shy to actually mention it. If you actually have credible evidence, evidentiary documents, why don't you bring them to the fore so that we know the faces of this? I mean, it's been a long time that we've been talking about the sugar industry, yet people are just cutting around the issue. Why can't you just go head on and we know these people, right? Some of the dailies have gone full steam ahead to mention some of the companies that are involved in this, like the Rai Holding as well. We want to know from you legislators, what do you know? Eseli, what do you know? Kimani Wamatangi, what do you know?
Sugar is sweet, but when you follow its history, it's terrible. In fact, sugar was the driver of the slave trade. People were taken to the Caribbeans to grow sugar, because that's the place where they were doing sugar plantations. So it's sweet, but it's got a terrible, terrible history. Now Kenya adopted a very contentious model of how to produce sugar with smallholder holdings providing the sugar cane. While that model was contentious, it was still workable in the sense that at the beginning they were making the money. I think the problem with the Kenyan sugar industry is actually the problem with Kenya itself, corruption and looting, such that you find many of these companies have been brought down by the looting of the management and sometimes with complicity of the national government, because they were the ones appointing the directors, the managing directors and all that. So it has come to a point where the production of sugar in Kenya has gone down so much. Mumias is not crashing, Zoya is not crashing, Moroni is down. So therefore the production has gone down. Definitely when the production goes down, the consumption has not. So it gives an avenue for people to smuggle in sugar or bring in sugar in whatever way, with either genuinely or duty-free sugar that has been genuinely been exempted, or sugar that's not actually had a duty exemption at all. As for the sugar that has been brought in being contaminated, I'm still trying to read into it properly, because to get mercury into sugar and actually have it stay that way, or lead for that matter, my organic chemistry makes me realize that it's not really quite possible. With organic chemistry, the two might not mix. So I'm wondering, the government chemists, what methods they used to actually find these heavy metals, because lead and mercury or copper, lead and mercury are heavy metals. How they got into the sugar is what's puzzling me. Perhaps we are just trying to show how bad it is and to keep people off the sugar by coming up with that. But my organic chemistry makes me start wondering. My knowledge of organic chemistry makes me still wonder how they got that mercury into that sugar and it still stayed white all this time. It's puzzling. But definitely, the sugar industry in Kenya has been caught up in the corruption cycle of this country. Because I keep on insisting to people that Kenya is not a democracy. Kenya is a lootocracy. So this participation in looting is, and everybody wants to get into that. And I know the president has said they'll do a lifestyle audit. Let me assure you, the lifestyle audit is more likely to catch the small fish, not the big fish. Because the big fish have lived that life all along, and big monies are circulated in their accounts all along. So even if you go to audit their lifestyle, you don't find any change, because they have lived that way. Those are the fellows who are able to access budget making and pad it with what they will eat. So the lifestyle audit will not catch those fellows. It will catch the small fries who have just jumped onto the wagon recently and decided to buy a house in Runda or decided to buy a house in Kilimandi when he didn't own a house before. So the lifestyle audit will catch those ones. I'm not saying they should not be caught. They should be caught. But how do we catch the big fish? Because I can assure you, these sugar barons are the big fish.
All right.
Even if you do a lifestyle audit on them, you will not see any difference. But that's how they have lived since independence, because they are part of the cartel that pads the budget. Because I told you that looting in Kenya
starts with the budget.
Starts with budget. That's why they put in things that hii tutakula, weka hii hapa, hii tutakula. So it's a vicious cycle, what we are facing. So if it is a crackdown, it has to be a total crackdown. We have to get our nation back. We can't go on this way.
All right. So do you have the names? Do you have the faces? And could you also tell us, we know the story of Pan Paper Mill as well, and the way it was bought before by the Raya Holdings, and right now also he's been embroiled in this particular contraband that is very extensive so far. It was bought for a song. Give us a history of that. Was that also maybe just trying to pull wool over the public eyes that maybe they will use this particular paper mill as go-downs to store this contraband?
Remember, Pan Paper was actually a government institution. That's what many Kenyans don't know. They think that it belonged to the family, the Asian family. No, the Asian family were shareholders, but the major shareholder was the Kenyan government. The Asian family holding there was meant that they were the managing agents. They were the managing agents, and they used that position to actually sort of loot the company until with exchange pricing and things like that, until it went on its knees, and then they left because they wanted to pull out. I think they foresaw that there's going to be a shortage of wood in Kenya that makes paper. As you see, our forests are decimated. I think they foresaw that and they found a way of how to pull out. So the fiasco of pan paper, I lay it squarely at the feet of government, because eventually even the money that was pumped in to try and revive it by Kibaki and so on, that money was virtually looted. It did not go to the purpose it was supposed to go to. So it's a vicious cycle that by the time they were selling it, it was sold for a song. What I've not got the facts yet, but the sugar was found in pan paper, and this sugar was supposed to belong to West Kenya Sugar. The ownership of West Kenya Sugar and pan paper are the same. So these are just godowns. Perhaps they were storing it there, but the ownership is the same. So what we need to know is this sugar that was found there, because the investigations that are going on, not much is being revealed about it. So to comment about it is even more difficult. But as I told you, the issue of the business, can I say, business environment in Kenya is so harsh that if you want to do clean, straight business, you have to be one very tough cookie, because the place is actually littered with what you'd call thieves and robbers who pretend to be businessmen. And if you are a genuine businessman, to succeed, you have to be a very tough cookie, because these fellows won't let you succeed. Their way of doing business is totally upside down. They manage to manipulate how the budget is created. They put in things there, then they supply air and get paid, while you are trying to supply the real thing and get paid. They are supplying air and getting paid. So the business environment in Kenya has been spoiled by this culture. I call it a culture. Right. This culture of corruption and outright.
Some legislators have been mentioned in this, of course, with this contraband and also Somali. Do you know of any legislators or any legislator that
I wouldn't, even if I knew, I would not say so on national TV, at the risk of being taken to court and my little wealth taken away from me to pay damages. So I would hesitate to mention anybody's name.
Yes, but you will hesitate, but you can actually give us an inkling. Is there any legislator involved?
Right from the 10th Parliament, when I came to Parliament, legislators have always been mentioned to be involved in some of these underhand dealings, and especially the sugar area. They have always mentioned some legislators, some who have already left Parliament, some who are still in Parliament, but I would hesitate to name them, because unless I'm on the floor of the House where I've got protection. But here I don't have that kind of protection. If I named them, I would end up...
But over the years, why haven't you mentioned them, if you knew them?
On the floor?
Yes, on the floor of the House.
Yeah, on the floor. Some names have come up.
Have you mentioned any yourself?
Not myself.
Why not?
Because I think I've not had the occasion to.
Or we've chosen not to really have the occasion.
you can look at it that way.
Deliberately.
But remember, as I told you, it's a cutthroat business. And when I mean cutthroat, I mean it literally. So you can have your throat slit by actually throwing around names. So it's something that needs to be, I think the agencies, the investigative agencies, if they were really doing their job, this would not arise. But they are also part of the problem. So even if legislators were to name each other as being involved in this racket, and the investigative agencies are not following it up, you get nowhere.
All right. Let's say from Wamatangi, any information that you have on some of the legislators that are involved in this? And would you also dare telling us that if you knew any?
Yes, Debarl, I think the topic that that my colleagues were handling is really the contraband sugar, and
of course that is the larger scope of it,
and the larger scope of how our crisis is, and I believe because Eseli says that he has some names, The only thing we'd need to do is to invoke the parliamentary standing orders here, and he can name people and enjoy a few privileges. But Debarl, in my view,
do you have names yourself?
In my view, first, let me first make my
Let's
comments.
begin from. Do you have names?
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's where I will go.
Okay.
Give me the liberty of thought. You know, to put
to
my
lay groundwork for your
yes,
thoughts.
yes, absolutely. Yeah. So I mean, to begin with, Debarl, I believe that for us to, as a country, for us to tackle this problem of sugar, we have to be honest with ourselves, and I would want to begin this way. There is no way we can claim as a country to be a country who has an economy that is largely based on agriculture if we do not have a firm and clear policy on how we treat our farmers. That's the first thing. Because you see all these stories about sugar, and remember we just finished off with a maize scandal a few weeks ago, and what has happened to farmers in the Rift Valley, where you have even those legislators now that you're asking for, some of them being suppliers. So you have names there, you know, already that were mentioned. But you know, if you look at it in the overall, it tells you that we have a big deficiency on farm policy of government, and not now, but for a long time, eternally, for this time, we have not been clear in our minds and structured policy as to where do we place our farmers. How do we want, as we pride ourselves to be an agriculture-based economy, how and what policies do we want to put in place? Let's ask ourselves a few questions, Debarl. How is sugar imported in this country? For you to import sugar, you must get a license. So who gives licenses? Government. And so, in the first place, once you have laid that structure, what they're telling you, and then let's go take another step back and ask ourselves a few other questions. Is the production of sugar adequate to satisfy the local demand? The answer is no. Why isn't it enough? Then take another step back and ask yourself, why does Ethiopia, our neighbor, just a few kilometers from here, run a productive and profitable sugar farming sector and industry? Those are questions that you would want to be asking yourselves, and then you arrive at a very simple answer, that for many years, years on end, that government has not formed and crystallized its mind on how it wants to treat its farmers. And I say this on behalf of all the farmers of Kenya, because I have seen what has happened to people who farm maize. I have seen what happens to farmers in my own county of Kiambu who have been farming coffee for years. They are paupers now. I mean, you can barely pay school fees. I've seen what happens to farmers who farm tea in my own county and around the country. And so what I'm saying, even as we try to tackle this issue of sugar, we must first look at the broad-based problem. Where does it lie? If you look at what happens in our sugar industry now, to go down to the questions you're asking, I mean, why on earth would a businessman go all the way to Brazil, thousands of kilometers away from here, import sugar, load it in a ship, bring it, have duty paid on that sugar, unpack it and put it in packets and sell it cheaper in Kenya and make a profit, more than how you would have sugar produced in Miwani or in Muhoroni and packed and somebody makes a profit? What kind of disparity would you be justifying? And that tells you that we have a completely lopsided policy, that there has been no farm action, there has been no determination. And I would want to take these two steps further again. If you look at, for example, farming across the European Union, they have a clear policy on how do you treat your farmers, how do you average and evaluate the profitability, how you cushion your farmers to ensure that they exist. What role do farmers play in an economy and in a country, in the well-being of the people? And those are the questions that must ring loud in the minds of our policymakers and especially government, past and present. And lastly, let me say this. You see, when we speak about contaminated sugar, and you know, we've read it, it's been there in the news, discovered where. we have a firm called Kenya Bureau of Standards. And whether you're going to import sugar, whether you're going to produce it locally, before you put it in a packet, before you put it in a sack, in a gunia, and label it either for export, for what, or for use where, it must bear the stamp and signature of officers who are responsible for standards from Kenya Bureau of Standards. And so you would be asking yourself, when you have this kind of sugar discovered in a go down, ready to be sent to our shops, on shelves to be bought by Kenyans, where is the Kenya Bureau of Standards? What were they doing? And that's where probably I would want to agree with Dr. Eseli, that even as we take on this problem, and especially the battle against corruption, against looting, against theft, against this kind of policy that is intended to suppress farmers and give advantage to business people, we also must be honest, such that where you find that there is possible meddling, so that either you can incriminate people or so that you can create a certain impression. I mean, we also must be honest, because if we do not do that, then we cannot win the battle.
All right, give me names.
Names of Debarl?
Well, you promised to give me names. Then you lay the ground and you told me you have names. Give me names.
Debarl, the names that I would give you are the names according to the contribution that I have made here this morning, is the name of every person who has ever sat in a position in government, who has got the ability to make policy that is supposed to give advantage to farmers. Those are the culprits. Those are the culprits. Once you get it right.
Have you considered to be a diplomat after maybe being a senator?
Listen,
maybe you can be assigned.
You know what makes us as a country not win our own battles that we set to fight to liberate our people and give them a better life? It is because we want to narrow down this into small shenanigans and games of not calling things the way they are. Debarl, your name as Debarl is irrelevant. What is relevant for the part of that you play is, once you sit in an office and you've been given the responsibility to make policy, to call shots, such that tomorrow the person who grows that sugarcane in Muhoroni, the one who grows coffee in Kiambu, will be able to find a market that where they can sell their product and at a profit, then that is your name. That's the end of it. So we don't have any names. See, if we keep on on going to try to look for the name of Eseli or whatever,
don't you think
my contribution is very clear? That my mind is very clear also, that unless this starts from the broad-based policy, unless we make that determination as government, that all the way farmers are the most important people to our economy, for an agriculture-based economy, then absolutely
that has been
we are not going to get it right.
We have reports.
Now, on the small scandals that you're talking about, that this person imported sugar, this person imported sugar, then the DCI will have those names. The minister in charge of
what I just want to know from you
would have those names.
Okay, let's just
I'm a legislator, I'm a lawmaker, not a policeman.
You're not a policeman.
Yes.
But you can actually, we give you also this particular remit as Kenyans in Parliament to discuss these issues, so that we have good policies as well.
That's what I'm saying here.
If you have names, he says he has names, but of course he says he doesn't have the parliamentary immunity here in the studio. But do you know of any names that you can actually flow?
Yes.
In the House?
Yes,
I
do.
You have names.
Every person who has been a minister in the Ministry of Agriculture, every PS who has sat there, every PS who has sat, and the minister who has sat in planning, those people are culprits. Now and in the future, if they don't change policy to ensure that farmers are empowered, that we can have a strong farming community.
Okay.
Debarl, stop entertaining Wamatangi to talk necessarily, because
okay, let him finish. Let Jakoyo finish.
I speak my mind, you speak your mind. If you have a position, you state your position, not mine.
I have a position, but you see,
and it is your position that makes you the man.
You are paid to look after public good.
Absolutely, that's what I do.
So
in my fashion and in my way.
This Rai person, Rai is a human being. Rai is not a company. Rai is a human being. I know Rai. So we can't come here and scuttle around issues. He can't kill our people and not talk about it. What is there to be scared about? I mean, why would you want to go to court, Eseli, for saying Rai is murdering our people with fake sugar. What these parliamentarians need to do, and they should have done last week, is to take away the power of the sugar factories of importing sugar. You know, at one point, they were given that power. Nobody has taken it away from them. So they're legally importing bad sugar. And why are they doing it? Why is RAI doing it? It's because they are all involved in this so-called attempt to privatize sugar factories and make our people poor. This is already, he is already a private miller. He's already a private sugar sugar factory owner. What must happen? And I want to plead with my brother Eseli, because his people, there's nothing that can grow on his land and my land other than sugar. I said it in Parliament. When the President and the DP went to Mumias, and they forced us to do a supplementary budget of 3 billion shillings. Because Jubilee had the numbers, we gave them 3 billion. Then I said, okay, now that you have 3 billion, take the money to a local bank like Equity Bank, so that anybody who was owed around Mumias, because that was theft over a long period of time, anybody who was owed should go with their claim to the bank and be paid. Of the 3 billion, no farmer was paid. You saw the other day, Mumias, whatever the farmers had accumulated in their circles. Last week, you saw it was being auctioned. It was auctioned. The people of Mumias, those are Kenyans. So you cannot come before us as a member of parliament and purport not to know. When the papers, and I thank you guys in the media, when you're already mentioning RAI, why has this guy stolen, what you call it, pan paper? They went there, and this guy is connected to the topmost officers in this country. I know what they are trying to, what some of these crooks are trying to do in Yala Swamp. They are doing a sugar plantation, a sugar factory in the swamp. The other crook, the Mzungu, left. Now they are politicians who are using these guys to, I can tell the people of Yala Swamp, I can tell the people of Mumias, Bungoma, and Awendo, and all this sugar belt, don't allow this thing called privatization. Then you will stop the cheap, the importation of cheap sugar, which is laced with chemicals. We don't need them. If you allow this sugar, remember we were protesting. I led the protest. When somebody came here with some interesting nonsense that sugar is coming from Uganda. How? How do we import sugar from Uganda? It means the government is not acting. I want to challenge the President of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta. The way you are talking about corruption, narrow down to the sugar sector. So the people of Western Kenya will begin to feel like poverty is not being meted on them by the government of Kenya. Talk about sugar if you're the President of Kenya. Talk about it. Nothing stops Uhuru, Raila, all these people from talking about sugar. This sugar money has corrupted the politics of Kenya, and it is the easiest thing to do. Why is Sudan growing sugarcane profitably? Why can't it happen in Ikolomani? Why can it happen in Gem?
Thank you. Let's hear from Eseli, because you mentioned that you have also misgivings with this mercury and copper and other elements that we have in this sugar. According to your chemistry, this does not really make any lick of sense. But the fact is also that we have this sugar, the brown sugar, and they've been labeled unfit for human consumption. Yeah. So what does that tell you?
Unfit for human, already labeled unfit for human consumption, yes, and then it's being put in the market. That's wrong. It's not just wrong, it's criminal. Because if something has already been labeled unfit for human consumption, yes, and you actually give it to humans, that is not just, it's not even a question of illegality or whatever. It's a criminal activity that needs to be stopped immediately, and the culprits should be behind bars. My question was that how mercury the heavy metals, how they got to contaminate the sugar, is what I'm not, you know, I can't explain, because in the course of manufacturing sugar, I don't know where mercury and lead comes in, but for it, when you look at the chemical structure of sugar itself, and the chemical structure of mercury, lead, the heavy metals, and so on, they wouldn't mix.
They wouldn't mix.
And in the usual ways. But however, we know that where there is contamination of water sources, you get heavy metal contamination, and you can get that on vegetables, on many other places. But now on sugar, a dried substance, I'm finding my organic chemistry is just not adding up on this. That how did these metals get in there? So I think, even as the government chemist tells us these heavy metals were in the contaminated sugar, they should go further and find out at what stage did this contamination occur. Because if it was deliberate, then whoever caused that should actually be at the Hague, because that's
crime against humanity.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Wamatangi, let's close in on that, and we hear also what the president had to say about lifestyle audits. Just briefly.
Debarl, very, very quickly, I just wanted to
briefly
say to my brother Jakoyo Midiwo, you know, on my personal policy on what I say is I hold myself responsible, and I've committed myself to responsible leadership, and such that I hold myself completely accountable for what I say, and that's why you find that the determination about me between what is populist and what is factual, I will go for what is factual, and I would not make any statements or name any names just to sound popular. And that's self-determination. It's something that one chooses to do. And so, as I lay my facts, I just wanted to be clear that I don't fail to name names because I can't name names. I can. But I name names when I am sure that I'll be mentioning the name of Jakoyo Midiwo against factually something that I can stand against. So if that would make me unpopular, so be it. But responsibility first for me, and then populism, you know, next if it comes. And that's how we have to lead this country, Debarl. We have to change, because that's how we found ourselves where we are in the hole that we've been in, because we have guys who say what they don't mean, and they mean what they don't say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.